Stickman still has $4. Actually, he has $4.37 now because he found some change in the couch, and he is treating this like a meaningful financial development. Last time we left him, he'd just done the math on trucking and realized the $200,000 dream was mostly fiction. But he's not giving up, because right after that video ended, his phone auto-played the next one, and this one has a guy standing next to his car saying he made $400 in a single Saturday just driving around delivering food. No truck, no CDL, no 18 wheels, just his regular car, an app, and apparently unlimited money falling from the sky. So Stickman does the responsible thing. He ignores his empty fridge, opens 3 delivery apps at once, and decides today is the day he becomes a professional food delivery driver. Not because he actually wants to deliver a burrito to a stranger's apartment building with a broken elevator, because he wants to know, for real this time, what the money actually looks like once you strip away the screenshot of somebody's best possible Saturday night. Here's the pitch these apps are selling, and to be fair, some of it is true. Be your own boss. Work whenever you want. No boss, no schedule, no interview. Just open the app, go online, and start making money within the hour. For someone like Stickman, who doesn't have a truck, doesn't have a CDL, and definitely doesn't have the credit score to lease a semi, that sounds like the easiest yes in the world. And the gross numbers, the before anything gets subtracted numbers, actually look pretty good on paper. Drivers on these apps typically pull somewhere between $15 and $27 an hour before expenses, depending on the platform, the city, and the time of day. In dense, high-demand markets like New York or San Francisco, during peak lunch or dinner rush, drivers can see $30 to $35 an hour. That's a legitimately strong number. That's more than plenty of entry-level office jobs pay, and you get to set your own hours doing it. But remember what we learned from the trucking video. Gross is the bait, net is the truth. And in gig delivery work, the gap between what the app shows you and what actually lands in your account after everything gets subtracted is one of the most misunderstood parts of the entire hustle. Let's break down where that money actually goes, because unlike trucking, you're not paying for a semi-truck, but you are quietly bleeding money in about 5 different directions at once, and most drivers don't even notice until tax season smacks them in the face. First, gas, obviously. If you're driving a car instead of a bike or scooter, fuel is a direct, immediate cost every single shift. Second, and this is the sneaky one, vehicle depreciation. Every mile you put on your car delivering tacos is a mile that brings your car closer to needing new brakes, new tires, a new transmission, and a lower resale value. Most new drivers completely ignore this cost because it doesn't show up as money leaving your bank account today. It shows up 18 months from now as a $400 brake job you didn't budget for. Third, maintenance in general. Oil changes come faster when you're putting on serious mileage every week. Fourth, and this is the one that genuinely blindsides people, self-employment tax. When you deliver for these apps, you are not an employee. You're an independent contractor, which the government treats as a business owner, which means you owe 15.3% in self-employment tax on top of regular income tax. Nobody withholds this for you automatically like a normal job does. It just sits there, growing, until tax season shows up and demands its cut. So when you actually run the full math, industry data collected from real drivers, hundreds of them, tracking every single mile and every single dollar, shows the real story. Gross pay in the $15 to $27 an hour range typically nets down to somewhere between $9 and $20 an hour once fuel, vehicle wear, and taxes get subtracted. On the low end, some data puts average net pay closer to $9 to $11 an hour for less efficient drivers or slower markets. On the strong end, experienced drivers who know exactly which hours to work and which orders to accept can consistently net $14 to $20 an hour after everything. Stickman does some quick math in his head, which for Stickman is a big accomplishment. $9 to $20 an hour is a massive range. So what actually separates the driver making $9 an hour from the one making $20? Turns out it comes down to a handful of decisions, and none of them are luck. First, which platform or platforms you're actually running. DoorDash and Uber Eats are not identical businesses, even though they look the same from the customer's side. Depending on the market and the month, one platform can pay meaningfully more than the other, sometimes by $3 or $4 an hour on average. Smart drivers don't marry one app. They run 2 or 3 apps simultaneously, accepting whichever order comes in first and pays the best, which is called multi-apping, and it's basically the single biggest lever for increasing your effective hourly rate, because it minimizes the dead time between deliveries when you're just sitting there, online, earning nothing. Second, timing. Delivery demand is not spread evenly across the day. It spikes hard during lunch, spikes even harder during dinner, and basically disappears during the middle of the afternoon. A driver who works 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. to 9 p.m., chasing the actual demand windows, can out-earn a driver who works a flat 8-hour shift from 9 to 5 by a significant margin, because that second driver is spending hours online with almost no orders coming in, burning gas and time for nothing. Third, order selection. New drivers accept everything because they're scared of losing access to the app or getting a bad rating. Experienced drivers get ruthless. They set a mental floor, something like $6 to $8 minimum per order, or $1.50 to $2 per mile, and they decline anything below that line. Yes, this can lower your acceptance rate, but the apps, at least as of right now, don't actually punish you that hard for a lower acceptance rate. What they do punish you for is wasting your own time driving 15 minutes for a $3 payout, which quietly murders your real hourly rate, even though the app shows you completed another delivery. Fourth, and this one surprises people, what you're actually driving. A driver on a bike or an e-bike in a dense city has almost zero fuel cost and almost zero vehicle depreciation, which means a lower gross number can still translate into a genuinely competitive net number, sometimes $18 to $30 an hour in places like New York or San Francisco, because there's no gas tank to fill and no engine to wear out. Meanwhile, a driver running a car in the suburbs might gross more per hour on paper, but net less once fuel and mileage eat into it. So let's put a real number on what full-time delivery driving looks like over a year, because $9 to $20 an hour doesn't mean much until you see it as an actual salary. A full-time dasher working 40 hours a week at the median hourly rate can gross something like $23,000 a year before expenses. After expenses, that typically lands between $18,000 and $23,000 net for the year. For drivers who aren't optimizing much, that's genuinely close to minimum wage territory once you count all the hours actually spent online, including the slow ones. But the drivers doing this well? The ones multi-apping, working peak hours only, riding a bike in a dense market, or driving a fuel-efficient car, being selective about orders. Those drivers are pulling net numbers more in the range of $2,200 to $3,200 a month in strong markets, which annualizes out to something between $26,000 and just under $40,000 a year, for a job with zero interview, zero boss, and a schedule you build yourself around whatever else is going on in your life. That's the real spread. Not "you'll get rich," and not "it's a scam" either. It's somewhere in between, a legitimately flexible way to make somewhere between minimum wage and low to mid-30s income, depending entirely on how strategically you play it, and heavily dependent on which city you live in, because delivery pay in a small town looks nothing like delivery pay in a major metro during dinner rush. Now here's the part almost nobody puts in their "I made $400 today" video. That was one Saturday. One specific, cherry-picked, best-case Saturday, probably during a big local event or bad weather, both of which spike demand and pay. Weather, by the way, is one of the most reliable ways to boost your hourly rate on these apps. Rain, snow, extreme heat, all of it triggers surge pricing because fewer drivers want to work in bad conditions, which means the ones who do get paid more per delivery. But nobody's making $400 every single Saturday, every single week, consistently, for a year. Averages exist for a reason, and the average, even for a solid driver, is nowhere near that number stretched across every shift. There's also a cost that doesn't show up on any receipt: your car. If you're using your personal vehicle to deliver food for 40 hours a week, you are putting serious miles on it, fast. That accelerates when you'll need new tires, when the transmission starts acting up, when the resale value drops. The mileage deduction the government gives you, currently a bit over 70 cents per mile, is supposed to offset exactly that wear and tear when you file taxes. Drivers who don't track their mileage properly end up both overpaying on taxes and underestimating how much their car is actually costing them to operate. Meticulous mileage tracking isn't optional if you're doing this seriously. It's the difference between a fair tax bill and an ugly surprise every April. So where does that leave Stickman, sitting there with his $4.37, staring at 3 delivery apps open on his phone? The honest verdict is this: delivery driving is real money, and unlike owning a Freightliner, it costs you basically nothing to start. No truck payment, no CDL, no insurance binder with your name on a 6-figure liability policy. You can be online and earning within the hour, which is genuinely rare for any job. But it is not the $400 in a day fantasy either. For most people working it casually, it's a supplemental income tool, something that can add $500 to $700 a month, working 10 to 15 hours a week around a real job or school schedule. For people who go all in, multi-app aggressively, work only peak hours, and pick a fuel-efficient vehicle or a bike in the right city, it can approach a genuinely livable income in the high 20s to high 30s thousand dollar range annually, with total flexibility over your schedule. What it is not, for almost anyone doing it, is a path to getting rich. There's no version of delivering tacos that scales the way owning a fleet of trucks scales. There's no equivalent of hiring 5 other people to deliver food under your business while you collect the difference, because the entire structure of these apps is built so that the platform, not the driver, captures the value of scale. You can't build a delivery empire the way you can build a trucking company. You are, and will remain, one person, one car, one set of hours in the day, capped by how many deliveries a human being can physically complete before their gas tank and their patience both run out. Stickman looks at his phone. 2 apps open, $1 figure glowing green like it's promising him something. He's not deleting the apps. $9 to $20 an hour, done smart, with zero startup cost, is a genuinely useful tool for someone with $4.37 to their name. But it's a tool, not a plan. It's a bridge, not a destination. And Stickman, ever the optimist with an empty fridge, is already wondering what's next on his list. Because if trucking demands you risk buying a $200,000 truck, and delivery demands you trade your literal hours for modest but honest pay, what happens when you try the method that promises you don't even have to leave your house? The one where you never touch the product, never talk to a customer face to face, and supposedly build a business from your laptop while you sleep. Dropshipping is next. And if this video taught us anything, it's that supposedly is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence.